Famous sermon ever preached by Jesus, given to his disciples and to the crowds that were around. We've been in it for the last 3 weeks. We've talked about various things. The last was the Beatitudes. That's how Jesus opens up the Sermon on the Mount. Well, these Beatitudes are blessings, right? They're not commands. The Beatitudes say things like, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." They're pronouncements of blessings. They're not like saying, "I need to go try to be more poor in spirit." It's a pronouncement of blessings on those who are. Things like, "Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy." Now, these are some of the most oft-quoted passages and verses in all of Scripture. And what they have shown us is they've shown us something about the character of someone who calls themselves a Christ follower. What is the character of such a person look like? If you take all of it and boil it down in the Beatitudes, I think you get an accurate depiction. But if the Beatitudes show us what the character of a person who follows Christ looks like, what we're looking at today shows us what the influence of a person who follows Christ looks like, arising out of that character. Look with me in Matthew chapter 5, starting verse number 13. Excuse me. "You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has lost its taste, how can its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything, but is thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hid. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under the bushel basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven." Now, in the first century, as it is today, salt and light are two very important things. Do we agree? You know what it feels like to taste food that's just not quite seasoned the way it ought to be. And you don't want to be rude, especially when you're at somebody's house, for asking for the salt. Anybody else feel weird about asking for salt when you're at somebody's house? Just feel a little weird about it. But I'm like, you're probably from the north and your food is really bland, and down here in the south we season it, okay? No offense to anybody north of the Mason-Dixon. We like to season our food down here, amen? Well, salt was a valuable commodity in the first century too, but not just for seasoning. You see, you couldn't just go in the first century and put your food in a freezer, put your meat in a refrigerator to save it for the next day. No, it would begin to rot and to decay because you didn't have things like that back then. And so salt, sodium chloride, was used as a preserving agent to be put on the meat. And from what I understand, if you would put that salt on that meat and you would spread it out evenly and you would spread it out thoroughly, that meat would keep indefinitely without decay. Now what about light? Well, light in the first century especially was something a little bit harder to come by than it is today. We take light for granted. Well, of course, if the sun goes down and you're somebody living in the first century, you can't go flip on a switch. You can't go to the cabinet and get salt. You can't turn on a lamp. No, in the first century, it was much harder. It required a lot more effort, and light was a lot more valuable to you because of the effort you put into it. You had to have a lamp. You had to keep it full of oil. You had to keep adding oil to it as it ran out. You had to raise the wick. You had to keep the wick trimmed. There was a lot that went into being able to see after dark. Light and salt were valuable commodities. So when Jesus looks at his followers on that day in the Sermon on the Mount and says, "You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world," he's really saying something extremely special and important to them. This would not have gone in one ear and out the other. No, they would have known He is communicating to us that we are special and appointed in this world for specific and special things. So as important as the two commodities were, John Stott points out in his book on the Sermon on the Mount, it seems remarkable that Jesus would say this to a group of fledgling, poor peasants in the first century of Judea, who we've already read about in the Beatitudes, that their only weapon is a pure heart, and their only retaliation is love. How could such a people go on to be what Jesus said they would be? The very thing that preserves this world from decay. The very thing that shines light on the world around them. How could such a group of people have that sort of influence? And before we unpack this a little bit more, I want to draw your attention to what is a peculiar phrase, I think. If the salt has lost its taste, how can its saltiness be restored? Well, your experience of salt is probably the same as mine. It doesn't matter if it's been on the shelf for 2 years, you can get it down, and guess what it tastes like? Salt. I don't notice any saltiness that's being taken from the salt because it's set there for any amount of time. Sodium chloride is a pretty robust compound. It's pretty hard to break it down. But here's the thing. In Jesus' day, when he said salt, most likely he was referring to a fine white powder that could be retrieved from the Dead Sea. And not only would this fine white powder have some sodium chloride in it, but it would have some other elements in it that came from the sea. And you could take it back and ship it back up north and could take it and season things with it, preserve things with it, but because salt is extremely soluble, that means it will break down from whatever it's in very fast. Dissolve in water fast, so on and so forth. If it comes into contact with any sorts of impurities, it will be the first thing to break down out of that powder. And when you've got white powder that tastes like nothing, is good for nothing, it is, as Jesus said in this verse, that it's only good for throwing it out and trampling it underfoot. I appreciate what one scholar I was reading said, A.B. Bruce. He said, well, what a downcome from being saviors of society to supplying materials for footpaths. Think about that for a moment. So Christians, who are we as the salt of the earth? We're to be a preserving agent. We are to be the ones that are arresting this world from the decay that it is bound for. What does that look like for us? And do we really have that sort of influence? And if not, why not? Well, this brings up a very unpopular but necessary topic for us. It can be summarized in this question. What good is a Christian who has been contaminated by the impurities of the world? Well, you might have the idea that the best way to win the world is to be just like the world. It seems that Christians today are determined to prove to the world that they're just like them. We crave credibility, we crave notoriety, we want to be accepted, we want to feel a sense of equilibrium with all those around us, and so what do we want to do? We want to blend in. That would be so much easier, wouldn't it? Just to blend in. It struck me this week as I read Oswald Chambers, the ladies group, the prayer group, not just ladies, but anybody's welcome, on Wednesday morning is going through Oswald Chambers' message on the Sermon on the Mount. I would recommend it if you could be there. 9:30, yes? Wednesday mornings. This passage, Oswald Chambers calls the divine inconvenience. Why does he call it that? Because it would be a lot more convenient if we didn't have to stand out as apart from the world Because those are two very different things. There's salt, and there's the meat that the salt is preserving. It would be very convenient if we could just not stand out apart from the world, just to blend in, make it a little bit easier for us. The fact of the matter is, that's not what Christians are called to do. If there is no indistinguishable difference between a Christian and the world, then what are we offering the world? Seriously, why would you get up on Sunday mornings, take a day that could be a lazy Sunday for you, and go to church if there was no noticeable difference, positive difference taking place in the lives of the people that go there? Why would you waste your time? If you're from the outside looking in, why would you spend a Sunday morning there when you could spend it anywhere? But it seems that Christians feel as though the best strategy for winning the world is to be just like them, to offer no meaningful alternative. But the fact of the matter is, the light must pierce through the darkness. We must be able to present to them something wholly other from what their current experience is. And if you think you gain influence by allowing the system of the world to contaminate you, you are sorely mistaken. You don't gain influence, you lose influence. You lose credibility when you can't show any meaningful difference in what Christ is doing in your life. What are we offering them? They need to see a positive, alternative lifestyle. Holiness is not negative. Holiness is positive. When God calls us to be holy, it shows the world something unique and desirable. That's what makes us relevant. If you blend in, by definition, you're not relevant. You're relevant if you stand out and show something unique. If we can't show the way out of bondage, we may as well close up shop. We certainly aren't being the preserving agent and preventing the decay that Jesus said we were to be. Now, when I was growing up, we got on this topic like this, and we talked about holiness. The way this usually started was that it meant that you can't hang out with non-Christians. Now, I'm sorry, but in reading this verse, that's about the dumbest interpretation I've ever heard in my life. Pardon my crude language, but dumb is dumb, okay? To say that believers aren't to be hanging out with Christians. How are you salt in the world if you're not hanging out with non-Christians? The salt comes into contact with the meat. The salt is preserving the meat. The salt is helping the meat. I'm not mad at meat if I leave it out overnight and it decays. My dad one time, this is so funny, he lost a pack of sausage in his car once. He looked all over to try to figure out what this dead smell was coming out of his car. He was embarrassed when colleagues would get in the car with him, and he would apologize. And guys, when I tell you that he found this sausage 5 weeks after he bought it, you don't even want to experience the stench of picking that thing up. I didn't pick it up, but anyway. But my dad didn't get the sausage pack out and go, "You stupid sausage, how dare you decay in my car?" How absurd would that be? If the meat follows the natural order of things and decays, it's not the meat's fault. So friend, if you look at this world and you watch the news and you sit back as the armchair quarterback and you say, things are just getting worse and worse, and this world, oh, it's so terrible, and look at all these terrible people. You know the question I want to ask? Where's the salt? Where's the preservers of all of this? Where's the influence of God's people? Don't sit and complain complain about the bad shape of the world. Do something about it. Be salt in the world. Of course it's going to decay. That's what it does. This world's sinful. It's not growing more sinful. It's always been sinful. I have to say that out of all the institutions that God has established to provide restraint, family and government being among those institutions, the church is to be the one that is to have the greatest influence. You know, scholars speculate that Jesus had an eye towards apocalyptic communities as he was writing this, or as he was speaking these words. Now, what was an apocalyptic community? Well, it was a community sort of like what were known as the Essenes. The Essenes were a group of people who sectioned themselves off from the rest of the world. They went and lived by the Dead Sea in caves. And the greatest archaeological discovery of the 20th century were the Dead Sea Scrolls. You've probably heard of them. Well, these people were preserving manuscripts, and they were writing what was known as the Pesherim, the commentaries on sacred scripture, and they were living there as a community together, and they'd sectioned themselves off from the entire world because they felt like the end was near, so they better not allow the world to taint them or in any way hurt them. And it's very possible that Jesus could have had an eye towards that community at the Dead Sea when he was saying this. Look at the irony of this. They're surrounded by salt. But what good are they? Friends, when I tell you that I don't want us to be harmed by the impurities of the world, that does not mean that I don't want non-Christians and unbelievers to be all over this place. I want them all over this place. I want them in these doors with us. I want them in this community. I want them taking part. I want their kids in kids' church. I want them in our connection groups. I want them all over this place. But not so that the world can have influence on the church, but that the church can show the world what eternal life looks like. That's what I want to see. That's being salt. That's being the preservers of this world. What about light? Well, no matter how enlightened this world claims to be, Jesus' statement denies it. The world is not enlightened. It's a place of darkness. And light is never produced by darkness. Darkness has never once produced light. It comes from an outside source illuminating the space that it's in. And just as the world has no means of preserving itself, it has no means of showing itself a way of light. You know, it seems off-putting today, I understand, to look at the world and say that we have the truth because we have Jesus. Jesus says, I am the truth. So it seems off-putting for us to say that we have the truth because we live in an age where truth is not popular. In the postmodern society that we live in fact, everything is relative. Everything's relative by situation, by society, by culture, by family. Don't talk to us about absolutes. Don't talk to us about standards and things that God would expect of us or morals that are absolute. No, everything is relative to your situation. So when we say that we have truth and we want the light of truth to shine on the world, that's very unpopular. It's a very unpopular thing to say. And as Oswald Chambers said, and I quoted Ben ago, it would be to our advantage just to keep quiet about that. Not to live everything out publicly. You know, the United States of America, we are so blessed and we have so much to thank God for. We have our religious freedom to thank God for, and we have not experienced widespread persecution as they have in other countries where our message is being stamped out. But friends, there is an even greater threat than that, I believe. And that is the social pressure to keep quiet. Not from the government, but from society. You see, because what that pressure does is it tries to ostracize you socially. And sometimes that hurts even worse. That hurts the church even worse. And so, what's acceptable? Well, you have your faith. You exercise it privately in your own home. And if you have to show it publicly, well, just show it through good works that you do, or working in a charitable organization or something like that. If you have to show your faith, just show it that way. But don't preach. Don't talk about about it out loud. Don't say things like Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and that no man comes to the Father except through him. That'll offend somebody, so keep it to yourself. Keep your faith private. But here's the thing, guys. Keeping your faith private and to yourself is not Christianity. That may be some sort of religion. I don't know what you call it. A religion that you just practice in your home, and you may pray to somebody that you call Jesus. But private expression that has no public outworking is not Christianity. I want us to be a church that reaches out to the poor, and I believe, according to the Beatitudes and according to the Sermon on the Mount, we absolutely must reach the poor, and we must do as much social good as we possibly can. But if we are not also, in addition to reaching out for the social good, but also speaking the truth and proclaiming Jesus Christ to this world, then we are failing to be the light of the world. Are we a valley? Are we a little village nestled in a valley? No, what does Jesus say in this scripture that we are? We're a city, where? Set on a hill. And that can't be something that we're just quiet and embarrassed about. Crucifixion was a public thing. When Jesus was crucified, he didn't get a private execution ceremony in a room somewhere by himself with his family and closest friends. When Jesus was crucified, the Romans had this philosophy that if you would crucify them before the public, you strip them of all their clothing and their belongings, and you put them publicly before everyone to be seen so that we can attach as much shame as we possibly can. Rome believed that would be the greatest deterrent against crime in their society. Friends, as Bonhoeffer said in the quote that I read last week, we are the crucified community. We're the community of the cross. That's who we are. That's the standard we raise. And when we raise the standard of the cross, we are the community of the cross. And that means, my friends, there were no private crucifixions. When you come to meet Jesus, and you die to your old self, and you die to sin, that is a public thing. That is a public conversion. That is something that you don't keep quiet about. That's something that people are going to notice and know about you. They're a part of the community of the crucified. Light of the world, shown through our good works and through the proclamation that we give. If we didn't tell them his name, if we just said we're doing this in the name of some higher power, we're doing this in the name of just some transcendent being, if we don't tell them his name, then I ask you, how could Jesus' words be fulfilled when he says, in the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven? How are they going to know who your Father in heaven is? If as you do good works, you don't also proclaim whose name you're doing it in. I heard somebody this week talking about their mother, and they said, I'm so thankful that she got his name right. If mothers never do anything else for their children, if they can just get his name right and point their children to Jesus by name. Jesus said about himself in John 8 and verse 12, I am the light of the world, one of his famous I am statements. And here's the important distinction, church. In ourselves, we have no light. The light is in Jesus, and we are as those described as John the Baptist was. It says, he was not that light, but he came to bear witness of that light. We don't stand here today claiming ourselves to have any light in ourselves. We are light because we are reflectors of God's light on this world. if we try to claim that we have all the light and we try to take the glory for ourselves, we are no better than the Pharisees that Jesus chastises. No, he admonishes us to bring glory to God and to God alone. If you do something to be seen by others, you're utterly out of step with Jesus' teaching. If when you do something good for someone, or when something good is said about you, if you simply can't wait to repeat that, or retweet it, and say, I'm so humbled by this. What does that even mean? If somebody says, I'm so humbled to, you watch out, a prideful statement is about to follow about something great that was said about this person or some honor that they received. If you're doing things and motivated out of the honor and the accolades that you're going to receive from somebody else, that's more like the Pharisees in Jesus' Sermon on the Mount than it is like his people, whom he says are to be salt and light, reflecting the glory back to God. Friends, this humility is something that we must treasure deeply in our hearts. John Wesley was complimented all the time for his revivals and the great success that he had and all the converts that he had seen as he rode horseback all the way up and down the eastern coast of the United States and saw great and wonderful things happen. And so as you can imagine, so many people would talk about how great Brother Wesley was. And this is what he said he would do when they would start pouring on the accolades. In his heart and his mind, he would immediately dismiss it all as lies. He would call it what it was. Because John Wesley knew John Wesley better than anybody else. And he knew better than anybody else that he was a sinner in need of God's grace. He could take no glory and take no credit. So the next time somebody's giving you compliments, just look at them right in the face and say, liar! No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. That'd be weird. But maybe just say in your heart, I know who I really am. I know without Jesus, none of those things would have been possible. Without Jesus, I could not do a single thing. In his name, it's only by his grace. Andre Crouch, that beautiful song, My Tribute. You know that? To God be the glory. There's a line in that song that says, and if I gain any praise, let it go to Calvary. You know what I love about that line? I think it's got a double meaning. Because it's saying that all of the praise and glory should go to the crucified Son of God on Calvary. But the second meaning is this, that any praise and any glory and any accolades that I receive should be crucified. I should die to them, and they should die to me. The praise, the glory belongs to God alone. This sermon wouldn't be complete if we didn't talk about our mission, church. We are a missional community. You know, I like this phrase. I didn't come up with this. I heard it from someone else. But it's so important. Because God has a mission, there is a church. Did you get that? Because God has a mission, there is a church. That's why we exist, to serve his mission. And Scott McKnight points out something you may have never noticed in these set of verses. That they're really verses that are not just talking about our character and they're not just talking about our influence, but they are also talking about our mission in the world. There's some clues in the text if you look closely at it. When Jesus says you are the salt of the earth, he's not just talking about planet Earth, he's talking about something more specific than that. In fact, usually when that term is used in Scripture, it's referring specifically to the land. And when a first century Jew was talking about the land, he was talking about his homeland, the land of Israel. The word is gay. It can be translated from the Hebrew term eretz, that is the homeland of Israel. Now, what's striking here is that I believe Jesus' words anticipate the twofold mission of the church that you see in the book of Acts. And what is the twofold mission of the church in the book of Acts? First to the Jew, and then to the Gentile, the rest of the world. Now, that twofold mission, I believe, is being anticipated and it is being expressed here by Jesus when he says, you are the salt of the earth. What does that mean? It means that he expected that his followers would be actively pursuing the Jewish people to see them come to faith in Christ. To see him as their Messiah. Boy, that struck me in my heart this past week. It's certainly sometimes looked down upon to try to talk to somebody of another religion. And I wouldn't say that Judaism is another religion, but to talk about somebody who doesn't quite have your faith. And to try to explain to them and proselytize why you should believe as you do. But nonetheless, Jesus assumes that we will. And it's an encouraging day to live in. And the reason it's an encouraging day to live in is because more Jewish people are coming to faith in Jesus as their Messiah than at any other time in history. I would encourage you to look up and Google Jews for Jesus if you have time to do so. But the second thing is when he says, the light of the world. This is something God and Israel would be specifically to the Gentiles. Isaiah said this. That Israel was to be a light to the world. Now, friends, I could go forever on this point, but I want to try to sum it up in one sentence. Jesus perfectly fulfilled everything Israel was supposed to be and did not fulfill. And the scripture says in Isaiah that they were to be a light to the nations. They were to be a light to the Gentiles. And I want you to notice this. Look what Matthew chapter 4 says, starting at verse 14. So that what had been spoken through the prophet Isaiah, remember that, might be fulfilled. Land of Zebulun, land of Naphtali, on the road by the sea, across the Jordan. Listen, Galilee of the Gentiles. The people who sat in darkness have seen a great light, and for those who sat in the region and shadow of death, light has dawned. Jesus anticipates that his people would go out and shed light to those who were in dark places. And friends, he's talking about his mission that cannot be fulfilled by just occupying a chair on Sunday mornings. Are you with me? The idea was that you would go to the dark places and that the light would shine there. We are on mission, church. And I'll say something very bold here to you, but I believe it with all my heart. There is no such thing as a Christian who's not on mission. It's part of the definition of being a Christian, is to be on mission. We've got all sorts of nominal and name-only definitions as to what it means to be a Christian. But part of what it means to be Jesus' disciple means that you are on mission with him. How dare we call ourselves a disciple of Jesus, not following him on his mission? Because God has a mission. There's a church. What if we fail to be on mission, to be salt and light when he calls us to be? Well, this sermon today has been filled with inconvenient and unpopular truths, so why should we stop now, right? How seriously does Jesus take his mission? Or I may put it this way, how much does he desire for this world to know him and glorify his Father? As usual, Bonhoeffer's words are appropriate here. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a martyr who gave his life for Jesus, says this: when Jesus calls his disciples the salt instead of himself, this transfers his efficacy on earth to them. You are God's plan A, and he doesn't have a plan B on this earth to see them come to Christ. Jesus reigns as the resurrected Christ in you. He doesn't need to be here physically to preach his death, burial, and resurrection, because you're here and he's in you. His efficacy has been transferred to you. Bonhoeffer continues. He brings them into his work. The call of Jesus Christ means being the salt of the earth, or being destroyed. Friends, I would not be faithful to this passage if I did not preach the consequences that Jesus said would be ours if we're not on mission with Him. He stated it clearly Himself when He says that if the salt loses its saltiness, it's no longer good for anything but is thrown out and trampled underfoot. There's no such thing as a Christian not on mission. There's no such thing as a Christian not trying to shine light in their world or preserve it to be the arresting of its decay. Losing our influence and mission is all one and the same as losing our faith and hope of salvation. That's who we are. I'm going to ask Renee to come, and I'm going to ask you to stand with me this morning. If you're a guest, it's usually not this negative, I promise. We haven't preached the truth of what this passage is telling us this morning. I want you to bow your heads and close your eyes.